Welcome to episode 3, everybody. On today's show, we have Jess Ashworth, who's a people connector, team builder, and executive recruiter for accounting and finance at LHH Recruitment Solutions. Welcome, Jess.
Thanks, Michael. Really excited to be here. Really appreciate you having me.
Yeah,
Uh,
great to have you on.
yeah, great to be here. So I know most people might not be entirely familiar with who we are at LHH. I don't know that you knew who we were before I started working here, but I'm guessing most of you guys know who Parker and Lynch is. I know that's a pretty common name in the accounting and finance recruiting space. Essentially, about 4 years ago, Parker and Lynch, as well as Agilon, Paladin, and accounting principals all came together under the LHH name. So if you've stopped getting jobs from Parker and Lynch, it's because we're now LHH. We do a little bit of everything. I think LHH originally was very well known for their temp staffing services and also their consulting across essentially when companies would be, acquired or might be going through layoffs. They'd be brought on to help teams, adjust their resumes and things like that. Now we do a lot of direct hire, which is exactly how I got involved. But we do everything from accounting and finance, where I specialize, to HR, to supply chain, to essentially you name it, we do it. We're pretty big. We're 8,000 folks globally. We're in 47 countries. So it's a really cool team to be a part of. And, if I'm not the right person to connect you with what you're looking for, I can connect you with the right person who does what you're looking to do.
That's great. Yeah, tell me a little bit about how you got into the recruiting space, just a quick little background on yourself.
Yeah, so I started working in restaurants actually back in college and majored in English with no real plan of what I was going to do with that. I ended up spending about a decade of my life moving up and down the East Coast and managing different restaurants as I went, and eventually moved out here to Denver back in 2021 and helped open up Bruto, which is an awesome spot. If you've never been, I highly recommend it post pandemic. And then really started to think about finding a career that would allow me to have a similar schedule to my partner who works in tech sales. Wanted something that I could have weekends off, more of a 9 to 5, and started thinking about what I love about what I had been doing in the restaurant industry, and that was building teams. And I always found it really, really exciting when I go back to a restaurant that I had staffed up, a couple years later, and a lot of the same people were still there. And in the hospitality space, that's not super common. So I thought, okay, I think I'm pretty good at this, and it's a good feeling to find someone a job when they're looking for one. So that's when I kind of focused my search in the recruiting space and ended up getting brought on by a really small firm here in Denver that specializes in the alternative asset management space. And we were really finding that a lot of the roles that we ended up working on were trending in the private equity real estate space. As you probably see, there's not a lot of venture capital and tech startups here in Denver, but the real estate market's booming. I remember looking out my window on the East Colfax towards downtown, and I could usually see somewhere between half a dozen and a dozen cranes moving at once, on any given day. So really kind of specialized in that real estate space. And while LHH is huge and our scope is way beyond that, I have definitely continued to keep my focus in the real estate space. That's where a lot of my contacts are. And we're seeing that that's going to be a space that continues to grow in 2025. So good for me.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. And yeah, when I started my consulting gig here over the summer, I really was reaching out, trying to grow my network as much as I can. And we got introduced on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
You were great. You took a coffee meeting right away, and at that point I didn't have a lot of answers for you as far as what I was looking for, what my goal of the company was. And you gave me a ton of great feedback, so I definitely appreciate that. That was a great
Yeah.
intro meeting. And,
Yeah, it was
um,
really nice to meet you, Michael. And
yeah,
sounds like you've found a lot of those answers since
yeah.
then. Sounds like your business is doing great. I'm so happy for you.
Yeah, found some answers, and now I have some more questions. So that's how it goes.
That's great. Well, I'm definitely seeing that real estate's going to continue, and finance, just more in general, for that matter, is going to continue being a huge space for hiring in 2025. We're seeing it kind of across the board globally as being one of the highest in demand. There's a thing called a net employment outlook, NEO for short, that Manpower uses in their global report. And they are seeing about a 33% growth trend, with about 41% of employers anticipating to make hires in 2025. So, again, it sounds like you and I have landed in the right space, and I'm excited for what this year's going to hold for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, that's exciting news for people just getting into the job market, people looking to make a move in their current role, and then obviously from the hiring perspective, you know, there's there's more candidates out there now, right? So that's an awesome trend to hear for sure for people on both sides, both looking to make a hire and people looking to make a transition. So that's great for sure. Um,
Yeah.
Now we had touched a little bit about LHH puts out a salary guide, and we kind of went through some trends that you noted. What are you seeing based on that the salary guide?
Yeah, it's an awesome resource, by the way. It's one of the great bonuses for working for a large firm like LHH is we have the manpower to put out a lot of insightful material, and that's something I'm super happy to share with anybody who would love to take a deeper dive into it. Got a PDF that's really easy to navigate, and happy to set up a call to go through anything that might be more specific to you. One thing I've found really fascinating is, they'll list the salaries for each of these roles and then kind of have a multiplier for each, city or market that you're in. And so Denver's multiplier is plus 1.8%. So that means, we're taking the average, it's slightly higher than the national average. So we're going to multiply it a little bit. However, one thing that I've noticed just in my time of living in Denver and working in this space is, our cost of living is about 10% higher than the national average. I'm just not really seeing salaries, keeping up and being as competitive as they are in other markets. So that's one thing I like to just throw out there. I'm not sure what to do with it or what it means, but I would love to see, employers in Denver step up and be a little bit more competitive in that regard. I really start to see that fall off and kind of change, I guess, from what we're seeing from a national perspective once we get into higher level roles and specifically looking at controller up to C-suite positions. I'm seeing us fall short maybe over $100,000 in some cases for what the national average is calling for, and those are for private equity real estate jobs, which traditionally pay on the higher end anyway. So that's just one thing to keep in mind. And again, that's the salary guide is just that, a guide. And if you would like a copy, I'd be happy to sit down and go through not only what's in it, but also what I'm seeing, from my perspective as well.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. Denver is still looked at kind of that tier below, right? It's not obviously New York City, it's not San Francisco, but the cost of living it's obviously continues to increase year after year after year, and like you said, salaries just don't seem to be matching that. So I would expect that would flip at some point. But yeah, it's been interesting to follow that for sure. So.
Yeah, yeah, I'm really hoping we can keep up. And honestly, I don't know if you and I talked about this, but I moved out here to Denver from Brooklyn. And my rent here in Denver has always been more than it was in Brooklyn. So
That's
just
interesting.
to throw that out there.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
And then on
and,
the yeah, on the flip side, I kind of wanted to get into the specifics more of people looking for a job and people looking to make a hire in the job. And just kind of go through what we've seen. So I'll kind of go first. Obviously, I've
yeah,
sat on both sides of where I've interviewed for a position, obviously, and then been on the flip side where I'm hiring somebody. So my thought process when I'm going into an interview, looking to hire somebody is how can I sell this company that you want to come work for. I think that's been my biggest pet peeve when I'm going into an interview looking to get a job is okay, they want to know everything about you, but they reveal so little about the company itself. So any job interview that I go into where I'm looking to make a hire, I'll go through all the specifics of why I love to work there, what the perks are at the company, things like that, and really say, hey, this is what we bring to the table for you. This is why we want you to come work here. In my experience, that's just been so rare from the flip side when you're going into an interview. And I've gotten a lot of great feedback from candidates of, this is a refreshing interview. Really feel like I understand how this company works on a day-to-day basis. And that to me, that's kind of sought out and brought in a lot of quality candidates of just being transparent, just being open to those deeper conversations as far as, this is what it's like to actually work here.
Michael, you're so right. And one thing I always remind candidates and clients, but a lot of times when I'm working with candidates, prepping them for interviews, it's a two-way street, and you're interviewing them just as much as they're interviewing you. You're going to spend more time with these people than probably anybody else in your life, right? And you want to know who they are, what they're about, and what your future can look like at a company. And so, while I do think that a lot of that does fall on the interviewer, right, to give that information out, I think that if consistently that's not the approach an interviewer is taking. As a candidate, you can come prepared and make sure that you're coming in with a list of, 5 to 10 must answer questions that you're not going to walk out before you get those answers, so that you can make a choice, an informed choice of whether or not you want to come back for a second round. So that would be my advice, to kind of take those matters in your own hands. But I totally agree with you, Michael. It especially that first round, I really think it should be at minimum a 50-50 split of, the interviewer and the interviewee both sharing information about, each other and what they do.
Yeah, absolutely. So then from the recruiting side or the job search side, what are kind of the hurdles that you're seeing, and just things to keep in mind for candidates as they start looking for jobs?
Yeah. So one thing I recommend, and I'm sure folks, especially if you're in the accounting space, you probably get sick of getting emails from recruiters. But I always say that waiting until you're not happy at your role is not the right time to start those conversations. You make poor choices. You get desperate. And I think that if you ever see a role come in, or if you get reached out to by somebody who specializes in the space that you're in and seems like they could be a good resource to you, now's the best time to talk to them. And I say the same thing from a hiring perspective. The right time to find a recruiting partner for a firm who might be looking to make a hire isn't after they lose somebody. It's prior to that, so that we can start developing these relationships. I would say in the same vein as that, I see a lot of candidates who maybe have worked at the same place for 4 or 5 years and have never touched their resume since they got hired. That is a major mistake that people make. You want to take note of your successes, your achievements, the ways that your role changes over time, because it's really hard to remember what you were doing 5 years ago,
Right.
when you sit down to finally hash it out. So even if it's not on your resume, just make a list, every time you kind of complete a project or do something great for your company, make sure you write it down and keep it somewhere so that you can brag about yourself later. That's really important.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's I agree with that 100%. Where, if you're at a business for 6 years and you're kind of coming to the end, you're like, man, I just need something new. And you're trying to think, what was I doing 4 years ago?
Yep.
You're going to undersell yourself every single time, right? If you're not tracking that on I would just say even on a quarterly basis of, this is how my
100%
role
agree.
has changed each quarter. Um, and that way you have a true sense of what your resume should look like. So,
I 100% agree, Michael. And I don't think any recruiter or even potential employer is going to fault you for sharing too much information, especially in your current position. I think there is such a thing as going back too far and giving too much, for the role you held out of college. But, in terms of what you do on a day-to-day basis, the more is welcomed, from my perspective when we're sitting down to talk about what might be the best next fit for you. So, and then, another thing I would say is I live on LinkedIn. I'm there all day, every day. So if you ever want to talk, that's where you can find me. And I know that's probably not what most people do. You don't have to live there, but keep your profile up to date. Put up a nice headshot. Make sure you're kind of keeping your roles up to date. Just things like that make it easier for recruiters or internal HR people to find you when they do have an opening that could be of interest. And again, that's one thing I like to emphasize is, it's a full-time job. Looking for jobs and finding jobs for people. If you've got somebody that's reaching out to you with those opportunities kind of on your behalf, take that as a plus and, keep an open mind to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Awesome. So yeah, you and I kind of touched base before this. We went through, here's some of the hot jobs that you're seeing. Here's what we're
Mm-hmm.
really seeing from the LHH salary guide for candidates and employers who'd be interested in learning more about that. Where would be the best place to get in touch with you?
Yeah, like I said, I'm on LinkedIn. You can always find me there. Also, you can shoot me an email. It's jessica.ashworth@lhh.com. Or you can always feel free to give me a call if you're somebody who likes to pick up the phone. My phone number is just 646-561-8742. But yeah, I'm pretty flexible. LinkedIn's always an easy place to find me, especially if you're watching this podcast. Sure, you can click on my name, and we can get something set up from there.
Awesome. That's great. All right, let's get into the fun part of the show.
Yeah.
Today we're talking music. So let's start with concerts. What were your favorite concerts that you went to in 2024?
Oh man. I originally started with five and I realized I had to add one more to my list, but I'm going in no particular order, except for maybe this being just the most mind-blowing. I got to see Fish at Sphere in Vegas. Fish has been a huge part of my life for years now. It's how I met my partner. It's how I've made a lot of my friends. It's how I'm in this house in Como. It's my ultimate kind of connector, and to be able to go see them on that stage in that just groundbreaking new experience of seeing music was something else. So I would put that at the top of the list. Have you made it out to Sphere yet, Michael?
I have not. It's on the list. It's at the top of the list. It sounds amazing from everybody I've talked to.
It's mind blowing. I'm really excited to see them continue to kind of build out their calendar of music and kind of, I think, iron out some of the wrinkles of how long it takes to get someone settled in there so that we get a little bit more variety in the upcoming years and maybe aren't seeing, multiple month long residencies like we see from the Eagles or, U2 or whatever. Um, Also, I was extremely excited to see Sturgill Simpson tour again this year. That was at the top of my list since he stopped touring back during the pandemic, and got to see him at the Fabulous Fox in St. Louis. It was the first for me. I'd never been to St. Louis, and that venue again was breathtaking. Just a classic, gaudy theater, and just beautiful inside. The sound was incredible. It's kind of my favorite size of a venue. I think probably around the 4,000, 5,000 person mark. So, then another top one was the Robbie Robertson tribute at the Forum in LA. I'm a huge fan of the band. He passed away back in 2023 and essentially got together a massive group of musicians to redo The Last Waltz. Scorsese even directed it and filmed it. So it was really cool. I mean, there were moments where there were 40 people up on the stage. I got to see Eric Clapton. I got to see Van Morrison, just people that I never thought I'd have the chance to see perform, come up there and give some love to one of the best and one of the fathers of Americana as we know it, really. And then the Forum itself, too, is just an awesome venue. Really cool to see how they took that basketball arena and turned it into a place made for music. I mean, just the way that they've insulated it and made sure that no outside light comes into like the concert space from walking around outside. It's magnificent. Um, let's see. You were excited to talk about this next one, King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard.
Yeah,
Um,
I can't say I've heard of them. So yeah.
so these dudes are from Australia. They've been around for a while. I saw them for the first time back in, I think it was 2018 at College Street Music Hall in New Haven, Connecticut, when they were touring their Infest the Rat's Nest album, which was heavy metal. At that time, they had dueling drummers that would play the exact same thing on the drum kit facing each other. It was a little over the top, but really just showing off their chops and how tight and talented they are musically. Have been seeing them ever since. And went and saw their marathon set at the Germania Insurance Amphitheater in Austin, which is one of my favorite cities. It's always just a blast anytime we go there. So that was a hit. We saw them at Red Rocks too. I don't know if you've seen that they do. They're the only people I know that do this. They do a double feature and play a matinee show in the afternoon and a night show. I remember I went to the matinee, not this past year, but the year before last, and was talking to a candidate and closing a deal. And he gave me a call as soon as I got there, taking the day off work, and gave me a call to ask some questions as soon as I got there. And they started playing. I had to go inside the I forget what they call it, like the not the trading post, but the kind of top where they have the museum and you go down the
Mhm.
stairs. I had to go all the way inside down the stairs and still could like hear the music because they were playing so loud. I was just like, I'm really sorry. This is as far from it as I could get, but they're a blast. So you should go check them out,
All
Michael.
right, yeah, I will. I will.
And then I would say to cap it off, parcels, which was new to me, and I think they're French. Super dancey, kind of not my typical choice of music, but they were somebody I kind of fell in love with this past year. Played Red Rocks the night the Celtics won the championship, so we stayed in Morrison, watching through the third quarter. Went and walked up to Red Rocks, sat and watched the rest of the game on a phone while we were watching the concert, and then got to
All
celebrate the C's win at one of the most diverse shows I've ever been to at Red Rocks. I met someone from Argentina, some girls from Ireland. It's just a super, super fun crowd, that one.
nice. Nice.
Yeah. How about you? Give me
Yeah,
some of
that's
yours.
that's tough to follow up with, but I really had two that stuck out for me this year. The first one, they just opened that new Ford amphitheater down in Colorado Springs.
Yeah, I
Uh,
haven't been there yet.
yeah, so that was awesome to see. It still wasn't quite finished, but it's an awesome venue. It's a lot like Fiddler's Green. They have that infield kind of behind it, so
Mhm.
that was good. So I saw Zach Top, who's a new up and coming country artist.
Okay.
Um, uh, Chase, what was his name? Chase Rice, which was awesome, and then Dirks Bentley, who was the headliner. Who's
Nice.
awesome. I've seen Dirks Bentley probably two or three times. He's great. So that was awesome just to see the new venue, and then the above all be all highlight for me. Back in April, I saw Lil Wayne perform up in Boulder at CU Event Center.
Heck
There's
yeah.
Yeah, there was hardly anybody there. I was or I still am a huge Lil Wayne fan, but back in
Dude.
2008, he was that by far my favorite artist. So childhood dream come true to go see Lil Wayne live. And he didn't put out a new album this year, obviously. So he just played whatever he felt like, and it seemed like he went through his whole catalog of everything I've ever enjoyed. So
Oh
that was the
man.
highlight. So
I
yeah.
wish I would have known, Michael. I would have gone with you.
Yeah, it was awesome. I had a great time for sure.
I
Yeah.
love Lil Wayne.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, that was my concert experience this year. So
Cool.
um But yeah, I really appreciate you jumping on and going through this podcast. It's always a fun time. I really enjoy the second half, obviously getting to talk about the fun stuff, but definitely
Too.
learning about what the market's looking like and some tips for people doing some hiring or people looking to make a transition into a new job. So yeah, I really appreciate you joining.
Michael, I really appreciate you giving me the platform to talk a little bit, and it's been such a lovely thing, growing this relationship, and I'm really so happy for you and the success that you're having in your business. I can't wait to keep following along with it. So, really, really appreciate you. Have a great weekend.
Yeah, thank you. You as well. Thanks, Jess.